this is Linda Cohn from ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
Sports Platter back with you all over the major platforms. Please do download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. We're brought to you by Stanley Law Offices. Visit them online at stanleylawoffices.com. Together, they'll work to get you the maximum award. Also, a big thank you to the Allen Angus Pub, the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, Prestwick Golf, and our good pals over at Welch & Company Jewelers. Log on to welchjewelers.com. Shop the showcase today. Welch & Company Jewelers, from engagement rings to wedding rings, bracelets, necklaces, and watches. They have you covered at welchjewelers.com. Go ahead and shop the showcase. Well, it's a brand new book. It's all over online where books are sold, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, etc., your local bookstores. It's called The Forgotten First, Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, Marion, Motley, Bill Willis, and the Breaking of the NFL Color Barrier. It is Keyshawn Johnson and Bob Glauber. Keyshawn not able to join the podcast as I originally thought, but Bob Glauber is, and you know a thing or two about Bob. He's covered the NFL since 1985. He's an NFL columnist for New York's Newsday, and of course has been the president of the Professional Football Writers of America since 2018. Bob, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, thanks very much. It was really interesting topic. Meaningful time in NFL history that is literally forgotten.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable to me. I mean, look, no disrespect to Jackie Robinson or Larry Doby after that, and then everybody else, but you know, Roberto Clemente setting the tone from a Latin standpoint in Major League Baseball and a host of others. But the NFL is our big game now. You know, the NFL is the sport. It's the most watched. It's the most bet on. It's the most popular. It's the highest rated. And yet they don't do anything for these guys. When are they going to change?
You know, it's a good question. And this is there's no better time than now to honor them. And I say that because this is the 75th anniversary. We all love anniversaries, right?
Yeah.
This is the 75th anniversary of that first season where Kenny Washington and Woody Strode with the Rams and Bill Willis and Marion Motley with the Browns began their professional careers and broke the barrier down for African-American players to come after. What better way, what better time to just acknowledge their contributions and kind of pay tribute to four very, very meaningful people and what they did to help the players that came after. So it is a little mind-boggling. Hopefully, you know, there will be some recognition of it in the days, months, and even years ahead, because you know that baseball will have a huge deal next year on the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier.
Let's go one by one. Just, you know, a quick little hit on each of these guys. You know, give me, in your opinion, the most impact that each one had. You know, Washington, Strode, Motley, and Willis, one by one. You know, kind of where their impact was felt the most once they got into professional football.
Well, you know, Washington was probably the best college player in the 1939 season. Not black college player period. He was remarkable in helping UCLA to an unbeaten season, the first in school history. And he played halfback in the single wing offense, which I learned about. And the halfback in that offense is basically the quarterback and the running back. So he led the team in rushing, he led the team in passing, and he was an All-American that year. And he was also overlooked in the NFL draft the same day that he finished his college career in a scoreless tie against USC. They did not have black players in the NFL then. So, you know, he kind of suffered in silence a little bit at not getting the opportunity. And part of that is that, you know, that's why he is forgotten, that it just, you know, he wasn't able to challenge it in the right way, and he didn't get that opportunity. Strode, boy, what a colorful character in terms of a life that is incredible. He was a pioneer in three sports: football, and then after his NFL and CFL career ended, wrestling, pro wrestling. He was on television back in the really old days of the beginnings of pro wrestling, and then he was a famous actor for about 50 years. Now, not incredibly famous because he should be more widely known. But Woody Strode played in a bunch of what's called spaghetti westerns, westerns made in Italy. And one little factoid that people aren't aware of is that Woody Pride from the Toy Story series is named in honor of Woody Strode, who died the year before that Tom Hanks, made that role famous. As far as Motley goes, wow, just a man among boys. He was Jim Brown before Jim Brown, basically. He just dominated the All-American Football Conference, an all-pro running back, fullback, great blocker, great teammate, and was really the linchpin of some spectacular teams that the Cleveland Browns had. 4 AAFC champions, and then a couple of NFL championships after that. Terrific player. And then Bill Willis, maybe one of the quickest defensive linemen in NFL history, was also a forerunner to the middle linebacker in the 3-4 defense and the 4-3 defense because of his versatility as a speed defensive player who could cover so much ground, and they could drop him off the line of scrimmage if they needed to. So look at Bill Willis, not Sam Huff, as the precursor to that 4-3 middle linebacker position.
Marion Motley, I mean, he's one of these guys I lump in with so many others in the old AFL, NFL. The stories I've heard, from people who lived in the era and watched these guys, they get forgotten. Like Otto Graham was unbelievable. Marion Motley, unbelievable. For some reason, Bart Starr never comes up. You have to list 20 quarterbacks nowadays if you're on, national television before you even get to somebody, pre-1970, right? And so all these guys they get lost, and I think it's unfair because a lot of modern football fans will say, well, it was in the 30s and 40s. I mean, come on, were they really even playing football? The leather helmets, they didn't pass it that much. There wasn't evolution, this and that. But these guys were then the stars of that era. That era was how it was, just like today's era is how it was. So I'm actually really pumped that you and Keyshawn Johnson came out with a book like this because I think it's long overdue to, tip a cap to some guys who really deserve a lot of credit, Bob.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm glad you think that way because, I guess our society is really run by we call it recency bias.
Yep.
You remember what's most recently happened. Sometimes, like yesterday. I mean, that's how quick we are to judge things. But it was a formative time in the NFL and the All-American Football Conference with Paul Brown. It was an important time in the growth of both leagues. And those guys really were kind of like the marquee performers of their time, and they have been kind of lost in the shuffle as far as history goes. And hopefully this will shine a light on it, and hopefully the NFL will kind of recognize that it really is time to honor these guys. And they're very much into history. Remember the 100th season a couple of years ago? That was important to them. Well, it's important to have 75 years since the league was reintegrated, and especially in a league that is now 70% African-American. Yeah. And I guarantee you that 99% of all players in the NFL have never heard of these guys, and they really should have.
What do you hope people say about the book when they get done reading it?
Well, I guess I hope they say, wow, 4 really interesting guys, had no idea about them. And I think that's the beauty of books. If you're going to take the time to read a book, you're going to learn something. And we think there's a lot to learn about not only these players, but about what they went through, what the country was like, and taking it forward to today's NFL, where a lot of the threads from what was going on back then relate to what's happening now. And a couple of examples, Kenny Washington was a great thrower of the football. He is the first African-American quarterback to throw a ball in NFL history. He threw 8 passes at least in his rookie season with the Los Angeles Rams. He does not get credit for that in terms of history. And and black quarterbacks have struggled, not now, but it has been a struggle for black quarterbacks to gain acceptance. And the other part is Motley wanted to be a coach and never, ever got the opportunity in the NFL. And this is going back to the 1960s. So that was an indication of what was to come, and that black coaches still have a hard time getting opportunities, especially at the head coaching position. So those threads really run through today's NFL, not just what it was like in 1946.
In the final 90 seconds I have with you, I got to at least get you to pump out a couple of takes on the early going of the NFL, just kind of what you've seen, top storylines. And look, I know the rules benefit the quarterbacks and they benefit offensive players, but I mean, what are we going to deal with here with Tom Brady? Is he going to play in the league for 40 years here? My goodness. Jeez.
I alternate between, oh my God, I'm sick of writing about this guy, and then, oh my God, this guy is incredible.
He is, man.
He gives us no choice. The guy is just, he's a robo quarterback, and he is incredible. So, he wants to play till 50. I'm not going to bet against it. The guy's, he might, he's a top 5 quarterback right now, and maybe even top 3. So, God love him, and we'll get enough young quarterbacks to challenge him over time. Love watching Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the most electrifying player in the NFL right now. Gotta love Lamar Jackson. So it really is a passing league, and it'll stay that way for the foreseeable future. I think people like it that way.
No doubt about it. Well, go get the book, folks. It's absolutely incredible. I'm about 150 pages in myself. Keyshawn Johnson and Bob Glauber. It's The Forgotten First. Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, Marion, Motley, Bill Willis, and the breaking of the NFL color barrier, all over major bookstores and online where books are sold. The Forgotten First tells a story of one of the most significant cultural shifts in pro football history as 4 men opened the door to opportunity and changed the sport forever. Bob Glauber, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Keep up the great work doing your NFL duties, as always, for Newsday and other outlets, and hope to have you back on. The book is really sensational, man. Take care.
Thank you very much, Mike. Really thank you for having me, and appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the season.
And the ML Sports Platter is brought to you by Bryant and Stratton College of Syracuse. Great time to be a Bobcat right now. Go ahead and log on to bryantstratton.edu. bryantstratton.edu. Athletics, academics, and excellence at Bryant and Stratton College. Classes are always starting soon, and oh, by the way, they've got that brand new nursing program as well. So make sure you definitely hit them up at bryantstratton.edu. Fill out that questionnaire, and they can help place you a little bit better. We're also sponsored by our good friends at Barks and Rec Doggy Daycare, Liverpool Physical Therapy, and Matt Graham, your State Farm agent. Get a free rate quote if you're in and around the great state of New York today, and ask about the rate drop from State Farm, which recently took place with Matt Graham, SyracuseInsuranceAgent.com. That's SyracuseInsuranceAgent.com. So I wanted to spend the back end of the podcast kind of with breaking down the Sabres and the clown show that is, the franchise, and, the battle between Jack Eichel and the franchise. For those who don't know, the Sabres and Jack, they've been fighting with this thing like crazy, back and forth. Eichel hurt his neck. Everybody thought he was going to get traded, etc. Didn't happen. Why would it happen? Why would anybody know the value of Eichel if he still needs neck surgery? And if you don't know what's going on here, by the way, Eichel's only 24 years old, but he refuses to have the fusion surgery that the team's doctors prefer to repair the herniated disc. Eichel wants to undergo a complete disc replacement, an artificial disc replacement. It's a procedure that's never been performed on an NHL player. Eichel and his doctor want to do that. They don't subscribe to the fusion theory by the team. So there's battling going on back and forth. Now training camp is basically here, and Eichel has been stripped of his captaincy. It's just getting uglier and uglier between the two sides. The Sabres, who do you blame the most, right? Like, you think about it, when it happens like this, remember, Jack Eichel, I also think this should be a real lesson to NHL teams, The Sabres tanked. They tanked to get Connor McDavid. And they ended up with the number 2 pick, and they got Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel comes in. When he's healthy, he's a great player. But he's also been a little reserved at times. He's been a brat at times. I know a lot of people who cover that hockey team. He is not the greatest greatest thing since sliced bread, like so many claim. He's the so-called leader. He wanted to get paid. He got paid. He wanted to be, a captain. He got the captaincy, right? And all those things happen. He has to own some of this too. I mean, he has to own what's gone on in the relationships and, throwing everybody under the bus in the media and being a brat and, being the face of a franchise. It's a complete and utter disaster. Now, on the other side of it, the Sabres are a clown show. The Sabres with Terry Kimpagula, they're basically run opposite of how the Bills are run, right? I mean, they really are. Like, Terry and Kimpagula, they put in all the resources into the Bills. They got it right finally after, hiring Rex Ryan and having, guys like Doug Whaley, in. And I think Doug did some nice things for the Bills, but he's no Brandon Beane. Now you have McDermott. Now you have Beane. You've made the playoffs multiple times. You've won the division. You swept the division last year. And oh, by the way, you were a game away from the Super Bowl. And they keep just pushing and pushing and pushing a lot of things into the Bills. Meanwhile, over on the Sabres side, they give the fan base assurance that Jason Botterill is going nowhere, and then they fire him within a couple of weeks. Total message there. And then, they eventually bring in Kevin Adams and all the rest. And now, there's a complete and utter fight between Eichel and the Sabres. I happen to think if I had to pick one side, and look, maybe the procedure that's never been done before on an NHL player, maybe it hasn't been tried, but try it and it'll work. Like, who's to say that with modern medicine and how everything works, certainly Eichel's surgeon isn't a dummy. They're very confident in it. Maybe it would work greatly, right? But to me, the fusion surgery seems to be a solid enough ask by the team. The only issue is that you might have with it, and I'm not a medical expert, so I'm kind of throwing darts here and definitely not hitting a bullseye. But the fusion surgery, from a few of the things that I've read up on, is it more short-term than long-term? And if that's the case, you're running into problems because it's going to be a continued injury over and over. It's going to be repetitive. And Eichel's 24 years old, so is he going to have another herniated disc problem in 2 years? Is he going to have another problem at 28, at 30? Maybe it's going to be a recurring thing. I don't know. But what I do know is that it's gotten really ugly with the Sabres and Jack Eichel. And, it was all we've read from everybody under the sun, from my man Bill Hoppy to John Vogel to Mike Harrington to everybody who covers the Sabres. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. The Sabres are going to trade Jack Eichel. The marriage is over with. It's too stale. There's been too many things said about either side. Too many people thrown under the bus. Blah, 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 right? We've heard that. Well, guess what? We went the entire offseason. We have gone through the first couple of days of camp talk. We're going to go through a few, and Eichel's still a Sabre. And we've gone through him getting his captaincy pulled, and he's still a Sabre. This is a mess, and it's just an ugly look. And by the way, if I'm Sam Reinhart and I'm Rasmus Ristolainen, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I'm so glad I'm out of there right now. Because think about the entire NHL, right? Like, think about sports in general as well. This is basically like, and I'm not saying Jack Eichel is Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or Connor McDavid, but he is the face of his respective franchise. So this would be like Edmonton going toe-to-toe with Connor McDavid. This would be like Sidney Crosby and the Penguins arguing over an injury situation and the future of that player. This would be exactly the same way if it were Tom Brady, preferring one surgery and the Buccaneers saying we want it this way. Same with the Mahomes. Same with the Steph Curry. Same with the LeBron. Jack Eichel's the face of the Buffalo Sabres, and so it's gotten really ugly, and I think it's going to get even more ugly with this situation. And frankly, this could actually hang over the Sabres for quite a while. number one, Eichel failed his physical to no one's surprise, right? I mean, let's enough already. Of course he's going to fail the physical. He's got a herniated. His neck is screwed up. How's he going to pass a physical? Of course he's going to Of course he's going to fail the physical. And so his captaincy gets stripped. His physical is failed. No surprise. And now we are entering the season, and Eichel's still a Sabre, and he can't play. And there's no positive anywhere. Because they didn't figure out the next situation, you couldn't trade him. Because you didn't figure out the next situation, you couldn't, maybe that small glimmer of hope in the end that maybe Jack Eichel will still stay here and be happy, and we can, kind of solve the issue. Maybe we can kind of turn this into the Aaron Rodgers Packers situation, right? Where like he was mad, he wanted out, he's pissed off, he wants more help, blah blah blah. Throw him under the bus. The two sides are fighting the entire offseason. He's off screwing around in Hawaii. He's growing long hair, probably smoking a bunch of weed. And then, let's face facts. All of a sudden the season starts and it's kumbaya. Let's go. Green Bay got murdered by the Saints, but then they came back and slaughtered the Lions. And they got a big game as I record this Sunday against the 49ers. It seems like they play at San Fran every other week, by the way. But you couldn't trade Jack Eichel, and you couldn't have a glimmer of hope to keep Jack Eichel because the next situation got to this point. I almost, I said earlier, with the team, I kind of gave my yay and nays on the Eichel side and on the Sabres side, but I almost blame, if I have to blame, a lot of it for me is 50-50, but if gun to my head, if I had to pick a side, I almost would pick Eichel by just a very wee bit for two reasons. One, the Sabres have shown absolutely nothing to me as a franchise as far as having things buttoned up, right? Let's be honest. They've shown nothing. They haven't made the playoffs since 2011. They haven't won a playoff series since 2007. It's just an embarrassment. They screw up every front office pick. They don't know how to develop players. They seem to know how to draft every other year. They can't get the goalie situation figured out. It's a million. They're horrible. The product on the ice is bad. Terry and Kim Pelagula, I don't know as if they're, it's more a Terry's baby because he loves hockey, but I'm not quite sure that Terry Pagula and Kim Pagula even, are they on the radar compared to the Bills? They're messing up jersey retirements. They're not putting money into the arena, right? Like the chairs are breaking. You see pictures of cracked shit all over the place there. That's one reason. And then my other reason is this. If I'm the team, right, and clearly the marriage has gone south, and clearly everyone expects Eichel to be traded, including Eichel and the Buffalo Sabres front office, Kevin Adams and company, wouldn't you, if you're and I just thought of this last night, wouldn't you, if you are Kevin Adams, say to yourself, wait a minute, hang on a minute. He doesn't want our fusion surgery. Okay, what do we care? We're going to be trading him anyway, right? Like we're going to be. Is Eichel's team, his medical people, like they want the artificial disc replacement? If he gets the disc replacement, is that going to all of a sudden say, like, let's say it doesn't go as well as planned, but it's still better than they thought? Isn't Eichel then still tradable because he can play and he had it fixed? If you're the Sabres, aren't you willing to say, hey, you know what? To hell with it. Let Eichel do what he wants. Let him get the damn thing repaired totally. No fusion surgery. Right when it's done, right when he's cleared to play, we're good to go. And then I'm going to start making calls again to the Ducks, to the Rangers, to the Wild, to Vegas, to everybody to take Jack Eichel off my hands. And by the way, now you can't even do that because all this time has gone by. You could have done it 5 or 6 months ago. You could have done it a long time ago. You could have said to Eichel, hey, you know what? Hell with it. because he's had this neck thing going on for a long time. All these things, these problems, the battle, the neck, it's all gone back to the end of last season. It's all gone back. I mean, we're almost in October at another NHL season starting, and do the math, man. October back to September, August, July, June, May, April, March. I mean, we're dealing with 6, 7, 8 months here. They should have, right out of the gate, when they were battling, hey, you know what, Jack? Sure, go ahead, do your thing. Because one of two things is going to happen. One, the surgery isn't going to be as solid as Eichel and his team thought, or it's going to be a flourishing, unprecedented, historical, monumental, whatever word you want to use, medical thing that takes place, in which then it could set the table. And oh, by the way, if he gets this thing repaired and he's cleared and he's playing and he's okay and he looks good, his value skyrockets. And oh, by the way, other players with the same injury down the line will say, F the fusion, I'm going for a repair. I'm going for a disc replacement. So the Sabre, look, if I had to pick one side by a smidge who I favor and defend, it's Eichel and his team over the Sabres, but it's close. It might be 55-45-ish. Hell, it might even be 52-48. And that's the reason why. I mean, I just would, if I'm Kevin Adams and I know I'm going to trade Jack Eichel, I just assume say to hell with it right now. Go do your thing. Let's take our chances that, Eichel is going to get this repaired, disc. He's going to just get the full repair, the full reconstruction, and it's going to turn out great, and we're done. And then we can trade him. And his value goes back to being a top 10 player in the NHL. It goes back to being one of the best two-way centermen. It goes back to a guy who's, look, he makes a lot of money, but it goes back to a guy who absolutely, positively can get it done on a daily basis. A guy who can front, and center your first line. A guy who can put up 100 points a year. A guy who's an MVP candidate every year when he's healthy. Just take your chances on it. Just say, screw it, because we're going to trade him anyway. And then, or, look, say that he can do it, but put a clause in it. Say, hey, if this doesn't work and we, are devalued and your value is gone and we can't trade you, and we can't get pieces in for the rebuild to put with Cousins and other players and Middlestat and Rasmus Dahlin, right, and all these other players, Yoki Haru, then Pekka Luutonen, if this doesn't work the way you say it will, the way your medical people say it will, here's what happens for us, here's what happens for you. Hey, NHL, we need you to get involved because there's no way we should be even close to dealing with this guy against the salary cap. Those things should be on the table. They should be in the documents. So this thing isn't going anywhere. I think it could linger for a long time. It's classic Sabres. It's classic clown show. It's classic Loserville. And I'm so over this franchise. I'm so over the way the Pagulars are handling these guys. I wish they'd sell the team to a hockey mogul who's not only got a ton of money, but got a ton of passion and really wants this thing. Put all your energy into the Bills and go to win a championship, and somebody else can fix the damn Sabres, because this is an absolute clown show. The ML Sports Platter is brought to you by our great friends over at Ken's Auto Detailing, Brewerton Ace Hardware, Camillus Golf Club, and Sit Means Sit Dog Training. Go ahead and log on to sitmeansit.com. If you are in and around Central New York, it's Syracuse's best dog training. Call today for a free evaluation, 315-437-3647. That's 315-437-3647. Syracuse's best dog training is at Sit Means Sit Syracuse. Log on to sitmeansit.com. Sitmeansit.com, one of 147 franchise locations across the United States. Thanks for listening. I'm on Twitter at Mike L Sports, and as I always tell you, enjoy the games.